Welcome to Celestial Awakenings with Yeni. I am your host, Yeni. I am so thrilled to be in front of you right now for so many reasons. The road leading to this moment is surreal because I never thought in a million years that I'd be doing a podcast. And because of that, I've decided to do something different. I am extending grace to myself by dedicating my first episode to me. Took a long time to get to this point in my life. And you'll understand why, because I will be sharing my origin story with you. Speak only when spoken to, child. Stay in your place. Keep your mouth shut. Ugh. Here she goes with her stupid ass questions. Shut up. For as long as I can recall, this was all that I've heard from most of my family and friends. And as many of my fellow Gen Xers can attest, the cultural and religious-based saying, quote, a child should be seen and not heard, end quote, was the underpinning of our childhood. The level of compliance the children exhibited from this mandate was a sign of how much order and discipline adults had in their homes. Adults judged each other based on the level of authority and control they had over their children's behavior. Anything less than full compliance was an embarrassment to the elders or the family, which often resulted in immediate and sometimes harsh consequences. And depending upon how egregious the infraction was, you could receive your punishment on the spot and in front of company too. So let me just tell you about my relationship with my mother. My mother had me at a very young age, and there was an ongoing power struggle between her, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother. And although she had a baby, to them and in their eyes, she was still a baby. There was, and still is, an underlying angst or tension that I felt from my mother. As a mother, I can only imagine how frustrating it was to be constantly undermined by her mother and grandmother. The only person she could take her frustrations out, or who she thought she could take her frustrations out, was on me. I was a very inquisitive child who always, and I still do, ask questions that started with why. Everyone answered my questions to the best of their knowledge, but to my mother, she always seemed agitated by me and my questions. She took it as me always having something to say, and she used to say things like, "You and that mouth." Well, clearly, the seen and not heard thing did not compute for a while. Everyone had secrets. Everyone in my family had secrets. I was born into a web of secrets and lies. And from what I've learned, my existence was initially a secret to most. The environment that I was raised in was very unsettling. I was often confused by what people felt versus what they actually said. No one fully expressed how they felt unless they were behind closed doors. And when they contradicted themselves out in the open, I asked questions that started with, "But I thought you said," "Well, you said that you didn't like her because..." Side note though, this is why I believe that adult conversations should not be had around children. My mother often spanked me or punished me because of those questions. And let me just tell you about a story that I had about my Uncle Barry. I was 7 years old, and he was a nice looking man, and he visited and had a lot of ladies with him. One lady, I said to him, "You're nicer than the other one." The next time I saw him, he came into the house and he walked over to me and he plucked me in my mouth and walked away. I was screaming and crying in pain when moments later, my mother charged out of the kitchen and she spanked me. I believe at that point is when I lost my voice. From then on, my family often described me as moody or an ornery child. Life was very stressful. I had grown increasingly fearful of every move and the words that I spoke, in fear of upsetting my family and especially my mother. So I kept quiet. I preferred to keep to myself a lot. I felt the most peace in nature. To me, it was safer. I would sit in the backyard for hours, just playing in the dirt and helping the ants and worms build their home and talking to the caterpillars while they crawled up my arm. Now, unknowingly, when I chose silence, I was internalizing other people's moods and emotions like a sponge. I didn't know until I became an adult that these were the signs of an empath. Empath typically loves nature because we instinctively know that she, Mother Earth, can absorb or neutralize lower frequencies or any other emotion that's other than love. And it reproduces it as energy. And we can save that subject for another episode. I was told that being alone all the time was not healthy. So, according to my family, I needed to socialize. Well, that made things worse. As I got older, I learned that besides being very quirky, my inquisitiveness was a problem for everyone. My family viewed my inquisitiveness as a form of defiance and disrespect. My so-called friends were annoyed because I acted like I was their parent with my questions, right? In intimate relationships, it was viewed as a challenge to my significant other's manhood. And in the workplace, I was viewed as being, quote, difficult to work with, end quote, for asking too many questions. Respectfully, I am a firm believer that God has a sense of humor, and I'll tell you why. With the lack of freedom of expression in all facets of my life, I believe that was the breeding ground for decades of depression, anxiety, and panic disorder. I spent most, if not all of my years avoiding personal and career opportunities with the possibility of being too vocal and or speaking in front of a group of people. And although I spent many years in therapy and immersed myself in countless self-help materials, not to mention building a close relationship with Spirit, with God, I realized that I was still playing it safe. That's until now. Too many times I've been confronted with the possibility of having a podcast in my dreams, through my friends, and random arbitrary comments from strangers, all serving as further confirmation that I am no longer that scared, angry, quiet little girl. Because I'm here to speak my truth on her behalf. We're free now. And this podcast is the ultimate closure of my past and a path towards using my voice, speaking my truth, and letting it all go. I trust and pray that all the stories will fill you with hope and belief that you too can become free from your past and live the life you were born to live. Peace.